Hi, Kathy here from Kathy's Cute Creations. Today we're going to be doing block 2, and it was based on that acorn right there. I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to use these fabrics that I picked out, and I'm cutting them all 2.5 inches, and then we're going to need a 3-inch of the dark brown because I'm using that for the top part. So I'm going to need a 3-inch of this, and then I'm going to need 4 3-inch of the white, which is the background, and then whatever colors I'm going to use on the bottom of this acorn, which I'm going to show you here, my sample. There's the sample acorn that we're going to do. So we're going to need a 3-inch square, whatever you're going to use down here. I use the same color, and then the background. That's what I was talking about, because you need 4 backgrounds, and then 2 of the brown because this is a rectangle. But everything else, this is all 2.5 inch. If you wanted to use a jelly roll, that'd be fine. But when it comes to the point of putting this on, you're going to need a 3-inch, unless you want to snowball it yourself. I did not snowball any of these. This is half square triangles. If you're still unsure of making the half square triangle, or if you haven't made it yet, then we need to cut these out 3.5 inches, because when you're new and you're still learning, you want them an inch bigger than your final square. And our final square, this thing here, is 2.5 inches. So it's going to be your decision what you want to do. If you've got scraps you're using, you can always practice with a scrap piece first to see if you can get that technique down with using 2 3-inch squares put together and then downsize to 2.5. Okay, so I want to correct something. I said 3-inch white backgrounds, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 of the half square triangles in 3 inches and 2 in 3.5 inch to show you how much fabric you're going to have left over to cut this down to a 2.5. In case you still don't have the hang of it, you're going to want to go with the 3.5 inch. If you got a hang of it, you already know how to do half square triangles, then you're going to use the 3-inch. And when we get to the point that we cut it down, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, because I'm going to put them side by side. If you've got a jelly roll and you want to use it, now would be a time to use it if you want. Otherwise, you can cut all your strips out. I took my fabric. I'm going to show you what I've done down here on the table, what I've done with my strips. With my back quarters, all I did was cut out 1 strip on all of these colors that I want to use for the body of the acorn. Then here, these are the 3-inch. I've got the 2 dark ones, which are going to be the top, and the 2 that are going to be the side. This is my half square triangle. And then I'm going to use this for the bottom, because I want to use 2 of this color for the bottom. So I did these in 3.5 inch. I cut them. Now the white are strictly 2.5 inch strips, because they're all the background. Because I'm undecided, this is where you want to decide how many you make. And I take it up to the 2.5 mark, and I'm squaring it up based on the line right here. And make sure that when you use your rotary cutter that you're not doing this, because you're jipping yourself on fabric if you've got that thing turned. You want it straight up and down. You don't want to lean it that way, and you don't want to lean it that way. I just went off my mark there. Straight up and down. I'm going to cut out 2.5 inch squares, and as you can tell, my color's kind of changed because some of those were just way too light. So I pulled in 1 of these and 2 of these. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the background size is so that we can just have nothing but the fabric cut out first. Then we'll build it. Okay? I use this as my model and my sample. I'm calling this row 1, and you're going to need 2 2.5 by 6 inch rectangles. The stem is a 2.5 by 1.5 because we're losing a 1/4 inch both sides. Then on row 2, you already know you've either cut out a 3-inch square of this white background and this color, whatever color you're using, or a 3.5 inch. It's going to be your option. This piece here is 2.5 by 4.5 rectangle, and then each one of these corners is a 2.5 inch square. On row 3, we already know that we're going to have these 3 connected for whatever colors you want. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew these 3 together, these three together because these are all the same size. I'm going to just tell you each one of these. Now this is only 3 rows, so it's 3, 4, and 5. You need 6 2.5 by 3.5. This row here is the entire length, which is right here a 12.5 inch, 2.5 inch. So it's 2.5 by 12.5. So let's go ahead and we're going to put our half square triangles together first, and I'm going to show you how I told you I was going to lay them out so you could see them. Okay, do you remember how we do our half square triangles? This is where we're going to be marking them in half. Now I usually take the dark color fabric and mark it. So I'm going to use a blue pen, which is a friction pen. And I go from corner to corner, and I do half dashes because that's going to be my cutting line, and I can see it with the blue pen. And then I take the dotted line and I put it on the left hand side of the dash line, and then I draw a line, turn it around, and do the same thing on this side because this is my sewing line, and I do it to all 4 of these. Now I'm going to use the blue for the dark colored fabric, and then I'm going to use this pinkish reddish one for that fabric. As long as I can see it, I'm fine. It doesn't have to be dark. So go ahead and repeat that process. Hold down on your ruler because when you make these little dashes, you're going across the bias, and that bias is known to stretch on you. So I hold it down really, really tight so that it's not moving at all. And do it on both pieces. And if you make a mistake, take it over there and iron it, and the lines will come out, and you can start over. Alrighty. Go ahead and finish up with this one and get it marked. Now you're going to take your fabric and you're going to put your right sides together. And I always take a pin because the object is to hold these 2 pieces of fabric together before you sew them. See if that went through. Yep. And just pin them like that. Now I have my sewing machine set up on a 2.5 inch, 2.5 inch length. I have just my plain cream thread in here. You can change your thread accordingly, whatever color you have that you're using in the way of fabric. I have white in the bobbin. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to chain stitch these. It'll go a lot faster. Now, if you find that when you get down here towards the tail end, that when you go to sew this stuff together, that it's coming apart, in that case, when you get about 1/4 inch, take your length and drop it down to about 1.6, 1.5, and then it's going to have a smaller stitch, and you can do it going onto the fabric, the next fabric, just a little bit because it'll keep your stitch better. I'm just talking about those that find it falls apart on them. If you handle your fabric too much, that's when you'll have a tendency to have it come apart when you go to the next step. So then you go just a little bit in, take it and increase it again. The thing is, you're going to have to remember to increase it and decrease it and back and forth. But if you get into a habit of it, it's going to come easy to you. You get down here to the tail end again, drop it down a little bit more. And I'm going to put the next one up there and start it. And take my pin out. Try to keep that lined up. I got off a little bit. There we go. ahead and cut it apart and we'll flip it. Or if you want to flip it while they're connected, you can do that too. I'm not going to continue to knock that down. I was just doing that to show you. I don't usually have a problem with my stitches coming out. And of course, you know, you don't always have to do it 2.5. If you feel like you need to do it 2.0, do it that. Okay, now I am going to show you what I was talking about earlier. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to first show you how to cut these. This is the way you cut them. Lay them out there. Take your ruler or your scissors. You want to cut them with the scissors, that's fine. And go from end to end. All you've done is split them in half. And then when we get done cutting them all, we're going to iron them. And then I'm going to show you how to do it. And I'm going to show you the fabric that I was talking about, size-wise. And there's not going to be much wiggle room when it comes to the 3-inch squares. Alright, so let's get these ironed. When you get finished ironing them, you're going to have 4, but you're only using 2. So take 2 sets of each size, set them aside for another project, and now let's do these. Now first, we're going to take the smallest one so I can show you. Here's my 2.5-inch ruler. And what you're looking at is you're looking at this line right here. You're going to put it on there. And you can see how little amount you've got to play with. And you got to make sure your line is straight across there. So you're going to be taking off very little. If for some reason you didn't cut this correctly and you made it too small, in other words, you made your seam too big, then you're not even going to get a 2.5-inch square. Not if you're new with this. And you can use a teeny weeny little thing like this. Okay, that's it. Now I'm going to show the next size so you have an idea. See the little bits and pieces that you've got left over? All right, let's go with the next size up. And this is the one that's using the 3.5. And I always take my little ear and I put it to the top right, because I'm right-handed. And here's our ruler again. And now look how much you've got to play with. And when I do this, I like to go up here and take the least amount off first. And it's okay to use this size of ruler, but I prefer to use one that's a little bit bigger than the project. So I always use something like this. Now this is my Creative Grids. I like that ruler because of the size of the numbers. They're big. Turn that light off so it's not blinding us. And then what I do is I will take the top, turn it, the side, then the top. And then I can turn it again. And now pick up my ruler. And this is up in the right-hand corner, just like before. And now go down here. And this has little bitty marks to show for my 2.5. So if I go down here and I put it at the corner, I can actually wrap that around the corner. Just like that. Straight up this line. So it's sort of like double, making sure it's the right size. And then off with the right-hand side and the top. And see, that's a lot more fabric coming off. But it's going to be up to your discretion which one you want to do. They're still both going to be the same size. Let me back up a little bit here. They're both the same exact size when you get done. Alright, let me get the next 2 finished up here. And I'm going to go ahead and use the big ruler to do this little one instead of that teeny weeny ruler. But it's still has to be a little bit taken off. So I'm going up to the top of that, as far up as I can go. Before I turn it. And then do my 2.5 right here, like that. And notice that I've got my hand partially off this ruler to give it more stability. Let's do the next one. And then we're going to go down to 2.5. There we go. Now we have our 2.5-inch triangles. We're going to set them aside. I have it laid out here, so I'm going to chain stitch it to make it faster. I'm going to pin these together, these together, these together. Then I'm going to sew them. Then I'm going to pin these two, which will be sewn, to this one, these two to that one, these two to that one. And we'll get them all chain stitched so the body of this is made already. Now everything is 1/4 inch. And remember, now you can take your length at the beginning and the end and change it if you need to. Otherwise, mine's just 2.5 inches. And I put a pin down here at the bottom to hold it so that it doesn't flip up. Cut them apart, and we're going to pin them to the next ones. And yes, iron them open, it'll be easier to handle. Now I took this one here, and I have it flipped it upside down so that I can do it here on the bump first. And when you do yours, you'll know what I'm talking about. It has to do with that half square triangle at the bottom. I hope my hands aren't in the way here. Take this other set of half square triangles and our rectangle. This is going to be the very top before we have our stem row up here. We're going to sew these together. We're going to do that so far. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the stem row next. So you're going to sew, here's the stem row, and we're going to put this in the middle. So you're going to sew this to this and this to this. That's the first thing we're going to do. It's going to be really easy, just like the last one. I didn't even have to use a pin in it. And then I'm going to iron it towards the inside, like I did on the leaf, and put it right sides together. Whoop. And we'll do this other side. We'll iron it open. That's the first row, and it's completed. Now we're going to add our 2.5-inch squares on each side, on the right and the left, and then we're going to have that row finished. So let's do that next. Put the square on top. I'm not pinning. This one's going to go downward, so it should not catch in the machine. You can have it, you can sew it the other direction too. It doesn't really make a difference. I always say it's whatever's comfortable with you. If If you've got to see it, flip it over. Now we'll cut it. And now remember, the next one's going to have the same size. I'm going to put everyone down here, and it's going to be on both sides. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to build every one of these. And just like I did the middle, remember where I put these two together and then connected that? We're going to put these two together, these two together, these two together. This way we can chain stitch it and be faster. Then we'll take this and we'll attach it to these and we'll chain stitch it. Don't forget to put the right sides together if you have difficulty seeing this. And if you have not found your 1/4 inch yet with sewing, because you're still new, you can mark that with a pencil, a friction pen, anything you want. When I first started out, I marked everything with a pencil because the friction pens weren't invented back when I started. And believe it or not, if you use a, let me see if you use yourself a really fine tip pencil, your seam's gonna go right over the top of it and you won't even see the pencil lead. Now it looks like that, and all we have to do is attach it. So I'm going to sew the first row to the second row, to the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the very last one. So I've got the first two, the next two, and the last two all connected so that I can go ahead and chain stitch it, and then all I got to do is connect two when I'm done here. And it everywhere there was an intersection so they would match. Now I'm going to go ahead and iron them open, and then we're going to pin them again. So this is where we're at now, and we're going to pin these together. Now we only have these 3 left. And I ironed first I laid it down, pressed it, and then lifted up like this to iron it because I want all of my seams to come on this side here. Did it with this one here also. I did it with this one also. So now I'm going to pin these 2 rows here. All right, so I've pinned these together, and let's get to sewing them. Now before I iron them, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pin this next one on. Now there are no seams to match on here. So what I do is I start here and I put a pin there, and then I put it in the very first seam. Then I go all the way over here to the right. I put a pin on this side and in the first seam. Then I went over here to the middle. Let me flip it over for you. Which has 2 seams on the other side, and I pinned that. Then I went out and went like that and got these 2 and these 2 because these were already done at the end. And that's how I pinned it because I don't want any of this stuff stretching. This is where the important part that would stretch if it's going to. So I'm going to go ahead and put 1 more extra pin in here to keep it stable. Now, if there is a pattern like this somewhere, I don't know where it is. I could not find a pattern. So I created this myself, just looking at my picture of that little acorn that I did on my machine. Remember when I told you I was setting it up? I only did 3 blocks, although I've got 4 that I'm going to be, that we're going to be sewing, but I only made 3 on the picture. And I don't know how to do anything. well, let me correct myself. I do not know how to do that much stuff on my website yet because I've been concentrating on a few other things. And when I get done with the other things that I'm working on, I'm going to concentrate on my website. I think I'm going to start a bit of a blog so that y'all can know a little bit more about me. And then what I do during the day when I come up here and I sew, and I'm not creating a YouTube video, but I'm doing some other things up here. I'll put that in my blog. And then I'm going to make it so that you can download things off of my website. So this way, if I've got a pattern, and this was a pattern, then I would have it on there. Or if I had an applique, then that would also be on it. So let me get this iron. Okay, there is our block finished, our acorn block. If you want to do any kind of embellishment, put leaves or anything, you can. I haven't done it because it would either be appliqued or something like that, and like I just said, I don't have a way to have you for me to get it for you. So that's what I'm going to do for mine. Let me get a little closer. The colors are off without being close. You can see that orangish color there. I hope you all liked this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Click on the little bell. And here's the two together. And then we're going to get the third one the next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.